Yo.
The Shift Gear podcast is kind of blessed.
Oh, respect, bro. What would you rate it out of 10?
Solid 6.
Guess what the intro is?
What?
We don't have an intro. I just played it. It just got played. It's the first week in our history I don't have to do an intro. I'm used to speaking like Somali or something else on the pod, you know? Like,
Nice.
This is no Google Translate visits for me this week. As you can tell, we're not in our homes. We're actually very far from it. We're about, 3,000 kilometers away from our homes?
At least, I think.
Yeah, a bit more, right? We're far. We're far away from home. We're in the side of the Sea to Sky Hotel on the second floor. Come find us. By the time you come look, we'll be gone.
Yep.
So,
No doxing us.
Yeah, no doxing us. 214, sweet 214. God help whoever's here next. Welcome back to the Shift Gear podcast. We are not doing a top 10 this week, which I know might be to the dismay of some. But we finally had a tournament to talk about, and we have a pretty big rotation coming up, don't we?
We do.
We're going to get into some decks. We're going to get into some other stuff. But one of our hosts here, and I say one because one was not as good. One of our hosts had a good weekend, and I want him to recap that real quick. So take us through your Vancouver run. I have your exact 60 in my hand. I'm using it as like a fidget toy. It's like ASMR. Watch this. Sorry for all your ears. Go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. It was a good weekend. I mean, I think Vancouver, at least I personally think, is the nicest city on the regional circuit.
Hondos.
In the world, I think.
Hondos.
I can't think of another city that's a nicer place. So that was nice. I always love coming out here. I take pride in the Canadian regionals. That we honestly have the two best cities for regionals on the circuit, so that's great. So I finished top 32 with no VIP Gardevoir. That's just how I like to play the deck. Our friends Lucas and Rowan Stavino both got top 4 with their pretty much almost the same 60.
Pretty good.
And it's interesting. I was talking to some people in one of my Discord servers I'm on, and they said of the, I think it was 26 top cuts Gardevoir's gotten in this format.
Yeah.
11 have been no VIP and 15 have been VIP.
That's nuts.
But I'm pretty sure like the VIP build sees like 9-1, like the ratio of play. So
Yeah.
I think we've kind of shown that no VIP is probably the way to go. I just think it's more consistent when you get to play the game, and like your bad matchups are like bad matchups regardless if you play VIP or not. So I don't know. I think the case for it is pretty strong after that. But
And I mean, like, you'll speak to it the most, but, like, if you can survive turn 2, this deck is so much better. But the problem is, half the time you don't.
Yeah.
So I think that's what turns a lot of people off.
But I mean, it's like, you can VIP, but then it's like, it's the same issue. It's like, if I'm not getting Mirage Step, if I'm not setting up, like, the thing I have too is, like, you can't really afford to bench Mew in a lot of matchups. Like, the bench space isn't there.
Yeah.
And we're not spending a lot of time talking about this because this issue isn't a thing going
this
forward.
Is no longer
no,
a thing.
there is no
Yeah.
VIP, but it was a nice send-off. Honestly, I had so many games this weekend where my opening hand or like board was just sus, like 1 Ralts, 2 Ralts. It's like Mirage Step just solves everything. So
You're telling it.
I went 7 on one day one. I lost a really unfortunate round to an Iron Hands lost on deck. Then day 2, like I thought I played really well, and I just had some like atrociously unlucky beats. A lot of my opponents made keep it polite, like some suboptimal plays that I couldn't punish.
Yeah.
I just couldn't draw what I needed, but I mean top 32 is pretty good, so
We'll take it.
I can't complain.
$1,000, buddy. $1,000. We'll take
Finance the trip.
it. Finance, bro, over here.
Yeah. What about yourself?
Yeah, I deviated from this list like an idiot. We were testing the night before, and what I just explained to you is what was happening to me. I just wasn't playing the game much. Got pretty frustrated, which is really weird because I normally don't. So I panic switched last minute to a random list that Nick Moffat sent me. Didn't go as well. I hit Zard, and my turn was literally over. So I played it risky on that side. Probably should have stuck with what I've been playing for the last 3 months, but it's all good. Sometimes you got to get punished to bounce back, you know. And someone said to me, it was really interesting. Someone said on Twitter, sent me a tweet saying, it was something along the lines of like, "Hey, I'm surprised that you're able to keep so upbeat and like do things after." And we want to talk about that for a second. We're gonna insert a video at the end of this that is gonna be absolutely hilarious. But like to me, I feel like Pokemon is more about the experience and less about like your results. And like even you top 32'd, right? You wouldn't feel as gratified if you didn't have a good time in Vancouver overall. And
Yeah,
like
100%.
so much of it is like going and just having fun traveling, and less of it is like going and playing a sweaty tournament for 9 rounds. Of course, it's a bonus if you can do well, but you gotta have fun either way. So what we're gonna insert right here, what you're gonna hear in the next 10 seconds is us having fun the night after I dropped. It is a legendary video. Insert here.
This is the chorus.
Hope you enjoyed that. that. That was an absolute masterpiece. I realized I didn't say what deck I was playing. I was playing Miraidon with Rotom V. Cool deck. I cheated on Miraidon for 4 months, and my generators didn't like me very much after that. So all good. Stuff happens.
It won the tournament, so it wasn't a bad pick.
The Peony version won the tournament.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I played the Path Judge version. Just to have a chance to Zard. I beat one Zard, but other than that...
I feel like you should just punted Zard.
Probably.
Yeah.
I probably should just play the L.
Yeah.
But I would have been 0-3 there and just been done.
Yeah, it's like funny because it's like I think day 2 was like 23% Gardevoir, so I'm sure the guy who won like just like rode the Guardy wave to the top. So.
That's just it. Like we talked about this off air, but like Miraidon winning like everything, and it's like there's always gonna be one guy who, like high rolls his generators or high rolls Tom or whatever. Like that's the risk you take when you play Miraidon. You're like, okay, if I hit Muse, I hit Charizard, I'm cooked. Yeah. But if not, you're chilling.
That's all. Like that's every deck, to be honest. Like you need things to go your way to do well. So
that's life, man. That's life.
Yeah.
This feels so interesting because like we've been doing top 10 like proper YouTube videos for the last like 3 weeks, and now we're just like sitting chilling again, which is kind of crazy. Yeah. There's housekeeping outside our door, so I'm hoping they don't bust in at any time. So back on topic here. So we have some new decks. Post rotation's coming up. Yeah. You brought this up. We're currently like in the middle of the mountains, having the time of our life. But you brought this up in the car. You're like, yo, EUIC is like a week away.
Yeah.
And we got some decks to cover. So what are your top 3 decks right now? Like looking towards EUIC, like what are you gonna be testing in the next week and a half?
Yeah, I think with like limited time to test, like I don't want to go too crazy, go too broad.
Yeah.
So I'll probably just stick to what I know. Like Chen-Pao has been feeling really good for me, so that's my number 1 pick right now.
Mm-hmm.
I've been playing a lot of Great Tusk Mill. I don't know if it's good enough for me to bring to an IC, but
maybe
I've been enjoying that.
Yeah.
I haven't played a lot of Charizard. I've played against a lot of Charizard, and just from talking to people, it does seem like it is quite solid. Like that's like a default deck, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, like other than that, like I don't really have any top decks top of mind for me. I think Stall is good. I just haven't played it enough, and I'm not really a Stall player.
It doesn't look like, just from Limitless results, it doesn't look like there's a lot of Stall, which is really surprising to me.
Yeah, it might be just people aren't playing it. Like I don't know. Like,
yeah.
But no, Stall definitely does seem good. And I do think Stall is like on people's radar. Like I think a lot of people are expecting it. Like a lot of people know it's good. Just one from the results it's seen in Japan, just from talking to people. So
yeah, no, I hear that. So a lot of people are going to Orlando. A lot more people are going to Orlando than they are going to UIC, I think, for the most part, at least in our area. So a lot of people have UIC to kind of like bank off of, and you take that 1 week of results and you like build up on it. And we know how metas kind of interact over time. So as like the day oneers of this new meta, so you're going to be a day oneer. I'm not going to UIC, for the record. I just don't know why, but I just don't feel like it this year, so I'm not going. My first IC I'm missing in 2 years, other than OCIC, which is kind of crazy.
That's crazy.
But just not feeling it, so I'm just gonna chill this weekend. But there's gonna be a lot of like day oneers and a lot of people that I think come with very interesting things. I think that comes with like a post rotation thing plus like new set and stuff. So I think there's gonna be a lot of roguish stuff. I saw an Espathra Zatu won like a 150 person tournament like yesterday. So there's always gonna be interesting stuff. As far as like what I would play if I were to go, like to me, I always like to counter tier 0, especially in like first day events. Like most people are gonna be like, okay, I'm going to USC. I want to guarantee my 80 points. Let's counter Zard. Like let's play Zard. So like countering Zard really like, I don't want to say shores you up a few wins, but definitely shores you up 3 or 4 wins, right? Like, and then from there, just kind of scratch the cloud the last 2 and you're okay. But I do think Chen-Pao, like those decks that are like kind of pre-existed, will be played a little bit more than the decks that are like entirely brand new, just because like the short turnaround and like how quickly people have to find prime catchers and like new stuff.
Yeah, 100%.
And like I've seen a lot of future box winning, seen a lot of HB box winning. I know like money isn't as much of a thing as it used to be in terms of like people's accessibility to cards and all that stuff. So I do expect a lot of Chen-Pao. I expect a lot of Charizard, a lot of Stall, but like with a 3,000 person EUIC or whatever. Is it 3,000?
No, I think it's less for Masters. I think it's like 2,000 something. Okay.
Well, the 2,000 person tournament, like either way, you're going to get a wide distribution of stuff.
Oh, 100%.
So, I don't know. We'll go through deck by deck, kind of give your thoughts on it. I don't know where to start because I don't know what to say tier 0 is. I'll say Zard. I
think Zard is the default until proven otherwise.
Yeah.
Just in Japan, I think it's dominated their city leagues. And it seems like it's doing well in these online tournaments as well. I think next up, I think Lost Box now is doing really well in Japan. It didn't perform as well at the Champions League, but now the City Leagues, it's been dominating. So that seems to be doing well. And then after that, I think it's like Chen-Pao seeing play, Arceus, Giratina seeing play, and like there's a big drop off in like a variety of decks after that. So
and we take things with a grain of salt from what we see in Japan.
Yeah, 100%. So.
Respect with the most utmost respect. A lot of grains of salt being taken there.
Yeah.
So start with Zard. What are you thinking? What's like a build that you maybe default to Is there like any sort of lenience
Yeah,
there?
I still think Pidgeot's better than Bibarel.
Yeah.
I get the logic of why people like Bibarel. The logic is, oh, it's better against Greninja, for example, if Chen-Pao's good.
Yeah.
I still think that matchup's bad either way, but I just think Pidgeot's stronger, especially since Path rotated. That was one of the biggest arguments against Pidgeot in our current format, and it was still the default build.
Yeah.
Just having the access to any card is crazy, especially now that we're having A-Specs, so the Pidgeot builds are playing that maximum belt, or they're playing the hero cape, so Pidgeot just lets you get that even easier. I mean, both builds play Arven, but I just think having this guaranteed access to whatever you need the whole game is just super strong.
Right.
I don't really think there's that many matchups where it hurts. Maybe against the Future Box, because you are weak to Lightning, so Iron Hands can take advantage. So I think maybe if the meta is super heavy, Future Box and Chen-Pao, then maybe Bibarel makes more sense. But otherwise, I just think Quick Search is just too good of an ability to pass up.
Yeah. I think I agree with that, actually, for the most part. The one counter-argument I would make is that, I think Buddy Poffin makes Beebs better, just because you're able to get double Beebs more easier than you used to be. And it's also always burnable. That's the other thing I think about it. I think that's something that was kind of countering Zard Beebs. You draw a VIP pass and you're like, what do I do with this? So now you have Buddy Poffin, which is hypothetically burnable as long as your bench is not full, which I like. I like that. I do think Pidgeot Zard is probably better because you can nitpick his Roxanne's when you need them and whatever else. And like you said, there's no path, but I do think there's a lot of space for Beebs Zard. I think there's a lot of space for it to kind of blow up, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Azul and his crew pull up with Beebs Zard or something like that.
They seem to like Charizard. They've been playing a lot. So.
Yeah, the fact they played Charizard this last week, it was into a field of Guardy was
well,
crazy.
No, they played Control
Panic Mask,
Charizard.
right?
They played Panic Mask. They played Avery. I think they played one other card, but
and to be honest, if for full transparency, I do think the Zard matchup isn't as good for Guardy as some people may think. Some people
it's
think
so good.
I don't think it's that good.
I've never lost to it with
really.
Guardy. I've never lost.
Dude, if you look at the stats online and even from my own personal stats, I find it when sometimes they just run you over. It does happen.
I mean, for them to run you over, they have to go first, turn to Charizard, and then after you step, you have to miss a knockout.
If you can step, I think that's the problem. The games where you break, you get punished way harder.
Yeah, but that's any matchup.
Not necessarily. You play against Tina or something, they can't boss KO you. That's the difficult part.
If you fall 3 prizes behind a Tina, you're gonna lose anyways.
Yeah, you're gonna lose anyways, I guess. So. Yeah, you can milk some turns with Crest. I just think it punishes you a little bit more than in other matchups, at least in my personal experience. And I find that when you take Zard and you tech it out for Guardy, I do understand their line of vision, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I get what they're doing. They're turning what I think is probably a 40-60, it to be a 45-55 or something like that.
Yeah, maybe. I'd have to go look at how they did on PokéStats against Guardian.
Yeah.
But
well, I'm sure it was well tested. Those guys tested
sure,
a lot, right? So I don't know.
I know Cyrus played against one of them, and they tied. So
yeah,
we'll see.
There you go. All right, well that's Zard out of the way. I do think Zard has a place in the meta, and I think it's going to be the most played. So if you're going to EUIC, have an answer is what I would say. Okay, next. What do you want to do next? Let's do Chen-Pao next, because we can kind of touch on that. You can speak to that a bit more. Where do you think it's at positionally? Is there anything that really stands out to you? Obviously, it just kind of gains Buddy Poffin, but is there anything else?
Well, the main thing it gained was the Codebreaker card.
True.
And the Codebreaker card feels really good. It's basically just double computer search for the deck.
Yeah.
You have Pokestop, Bibarel, and Radiant Greninja to draw cards. So
yeah,
the card basically just reads, put 2 cards into your hand. So it's really good. You can put the Prime Catcher Clone into your hand. It's a lot easier to turn to Iron Hands because you can just get the Lightning Energy really easily. You don't have to necessarily go for it. If you go second and let's say you just raw open Buddy Poffin, you can just put Bibarel and Irida on top of your deck. So it's just that card feels really, really good.
Yeah.
And a couple threats are gone, right? Path is gone, which was a big problem. Avery is gone, which was less of a problem but still annoying. And then the clone play is just easier now. It's 2 cards instead of 3. And if you've ever played Chen-Pao or against Chen-Pao in the current iteration, a turn 2 Greninja clone kind of ends a lot of matchups on the spot.
Right.
Because 1, you're taking 2 prizes with a 1 prizer, and 2, it's you're crippling your opponent's setup because you're normally taking out their evolution Pokemon. So that feels really good to me, and the deck just feels so flexible right now. Having easy access to Iron Hands, Greninja, and Chen-Pao. You have an answer to knocking out 2 prizers with Chen-Pao that are big.
Yeah.
You have an option to take out 2 prizes with Iron Hands on the baby Pokemon. And you just have Greninja to take 2 for 1 and set up. So the deck just feels like it's in a really good spot to prize manipulate. Chen-Pao's really good at prize mapping out of all the decks in the format, I think, which is what its big strength is. So to me, the deck feels really good right now because it has a little bit more consistency now with the Codebreaker. And also, another thing is when you go first, the current format, if you don't open a raw VIP pass, your setup is kind of scuffed.
Yeah, you're in trouble.
Now, like, it's fine. Like, you just have Buddy Poffin, which is really good to me. So I've been really loving Chen-Pao. Like, I always love Chen-Pao, but really liking it now. The one, I guess, thing to say, like, that's counterable, or, like, if you want to counter Chen-Pao is, like, you can play Airy. So I think even, like, Charizard can play Airy if they want, especially the Pidgeot version. I think the Pidgeot version makes sense. The Bibarel, not really. I know Arceus, you can do this as well. It's just one copy of Airy. Like, if you can snipe, like, a Super Retrieval or, like, a Super Rod from Chen-Pao's hand, like, that's actually really strong. That's basically one attack you're taking away from them. So, and control is another problem with Chen-Pao. I guess you could play, like, another canceling clone, like, instead of just one, for example, if you want to really counter Snorlax, but I don't know if that's enough. So, I think the deck's good, though.
Well, that was my thinking too. Like, Codebreakers seemed really good. Like, but then I looked at some of the lists that have been doing well, and they actually don't play it. Like, there's quite a few that don't play
it.
It's
wrong.
I don't know. Like, I haven't tested enough to know yes or no yet. I haven't actually tested all post rotation.
Okay.
Like, I just don't even like. I don't know. I'm going off of what I see, like, data wise, and like data wise, they're not all playing it, which was surprising to me. Like, that was my first reaction to it. I'm like, that can't be right. Like, there's no way.
The card's too good.
The one thing I will say is that I think, like, obviously Chen-Pao is kind of your bread and butter, but the one thing that sticks out to me is Buddy Pop. And obviously going into the middle of the game, like, the issue I found was, say you lose like a barrel and a fridge or something, you need to replenish both in the same turn. It was really, really difficult with VIP Pass. Whereas now, like, you play Super Rod and you have a Buddy Pop and you're immediately, like, good back again. Yeah. So saving, like, that one extra search, especially in a deck where your, like, reactions are combo pieces. So, like, your Chen-Pao gets knocked out, you now need to find, like, Chen-Pao energy, superior energy retrieval, Bidoof to whatever, right? Where, like, anytime you can take away one of those combo pieces, it makes a huge, huge difference. Yeah. So I think, like, a combination of Codebreaker combined with Buddy Pop is huge. As far as, like, how it's going to trade into stall and stuff, like, that's a little sketchy.
Yeah, just dodge it.
Just dodge it. I don't know what else you're going to do about that. Like, other decks gaining max belt, like Arceus gaining max belt isn't the best, but I feel like your Arceus matchup is kind of alright anyways.
You just have to be careful leaving Chen-Pao in the active again if you know your opponent plays max belt, or they could play max belt.
Yeah.
Because, one thing is, like, currently, for example, is, like, if you open Charizard against open Chen-Pao against Charizard, like, they can't knock it out. Yeah. Because they do 180. But now, if they play maximum belt, they can knock you out. So that'll be a nice little mind game. I mean, like, max belt to me, just, like, the opportunity cost of not playing Prime Catcher is super high. I think Charizard's the one deck that can play max belt.
I think they will play max belt.
Yeah, I think they probably will. If you play Pidgeot, they will, I think, because it's easy to get.
Well, that's the thing, and I think... Well, the other thing is, too, like, we gain Prime Catcher as Chen... Well, I say we. Like, Chen-Pao gains Prime Catcher, right? Yeah. So you're freeing up 3 spots immediately. Like, hypothetically. Which is
really nice. So, like,
3 jank spots, and your Battle VIP passes are now burnable.
Yeah, so the deck just basically got upgraded. And I think Chen-Pao probably takes advantage of Prime Catcher the best out of, like, any deck in the format. So, it's very good. So
get some Chen-Pao testing by your Battle League decks or whatever. What are they? Are they League Battle decks. Yeah. They're out of stock everywhere, so good luck. Even though I said that.
I mean, I bought Alt-Art Chen-Paos, and I have Alt-Art Iron Hands.
So. Oh, yeah, you did, yeah. Those are clean, man.
Those I'm ready.
Yeah, I mess with those. Okay, so Gardevoir, we can kind of skip. I don't know if that's real yet.
We can talk about it.
Yeah, it's been doing okay, actually. Like, I think surprisingly well.
Yeah, I think it's in this current format, I'd say it's probably the best deck by far. Yeah. I think the new format's like a tier 2 deck now.
I think even that's a bit generous.
Yeah, so we'll say tier 2.5 maybe.
Yeah.
I think the problem with it is you kind of, if you want that same one-shot potential with a one-prizer, like, you have to use Drifloon and the Bravery Charms. And basically any deck that plays Lost Vacuum just turns your Drifloons into 2-prizers. Because if it gets knocked out as they vacuum, they'll just knock out whatever you put up. So I've seen some people try to get around this. They've been playing Drifblim with Relicanth, which I thought was really interesting. So then you're basically playing a stage 1 to do it. That doesn't draw, like, it's not part of the Curlier line.
And another non-psychic Pokemon.
Yeah, you lost Mirage Step. You lost Level Ball, which is really big for the deck. So it's just like Gardevoir went from a deck that had some consistency issues that were kind of just, like, solved with Step. Like, now you don't have that anymore. And you lost your best attacker, which also was a draw engine. Yeah. I mean, Path isn't here, which is kind of nice, but I don't know. The deck just, like, got a downgrade in consistency and a downgrade in power, so... Like, it's still fine if you really like playing Gardevoir. I don't think it's going to contend for, like, top cut, like, super easily in this format.
Yeah, I actually don't hate it. Like, the more I think about it, the more I don't hate it. Because you play Arvin now. You play, like...
I guess,
you play Buddy Poffin. Like, you play TM Evo. I think it gains some, like, weird things in terms of, like, not specific cards, but more so, like, the mentality of the deck entirely switches. So your one prize or your one-shot attacker is now a basic Pokemon, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Obviously it needs a tool, so your setup's a bit harder, but you don't always have to drop the tool on it. So like you think about how many times like you used Arcana Guardy to like knock out something that didn't have that much health anyways.
Yeah.
Drifloon's now kind of your beat stick. The one thing I will say also is like the Drifloon Relicanth package seems kind of jank.
Yeah.
Like I like the idea. I do think it seems a bit jank, and I also think that a lot less people are playing Vacuum in general. Just because Path is gone?
Yeah, but I think Vacuum is actually a pretty strong card in this format because it does seem like every deck is playing tools or something like that. So, be it the Maximum or the Hero's Cape or Maximum Belt is like you can just knock their thing out. Like Bravery Charms for some decks. For the Future Box decks, they play Heavy Baton. Like if you vacuum that, that's huge.
And Future Capsule too.
And Future Capsule. So I actually think Vacuum is a very, very good card in this format. So I wouldn't be surprised if like a lot of people just play like a one-up Vacuum, especially decks that can search it out, like with like Irida or Arvin or something like that.
I agree. I just don't think people are going to. I think it's good, but I feel like it's like that luxury like 61st card. Like everyone's like, oh, I wish I had a Vacuum. Just like they're like, oh, I wish I had Drapion or I wish I had Spiritomb.
Yeah, that's fair.
Might be the 61st. You might like on a good day, you might be able to catch some people off guard.
Yeah.
Not a bad deck. You Screamtail, Drifloon. I don't know. Like someone is gonna do something with it eventually, and we're like, oh, hey, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
All right. So Lost Box has also deceivingly been good.
Yeah, it's been doing really well.
What do you think?
Yeah. So at first I was like, oh, why is Lost Box doing so well? And then I kind of thought about it a bit more. So the Lost Box builds they're doing well. They're mainly playing Hands, Roaring Moonix, and Virizion Iron Leaves.
Iron Leaves.
So I think the reason Lost Box is doing well is it trades really well, and like it kind of controls the prize flow like of the game. Because what'll happen is you're a single prize deck. You can take a knockout Cram, do whatever. Then you can pivot right away to either like Iron Hands or Roaring Moon, take a 2-prize knockout, and then if your opponent has to respond, like normally the 2-prizer to knock out your 2-prizer, and then you can just respond again with the 2-prizer. It's fine because you're ahead in the prize trade. So I think it has a really nice prize mapping. I think Iron Hands is super strong, especially in this format, because a lot of decks are playing like small Pokemon, and it takes advantage of Iron Hands. Probably the best besides Future Box and Chen-Pao.
Yeah.
Plus, like you can still run the Sableye if you want to. A lot of lists aren't even playing it anymore, which is kind of crazy. It's just like solid, like good. So you have single prize attackers. Like it's a toolbox. Like you can play the Iron Leaves if you really want to have a better Charizard matchup. So yeah, I think it's just like good, like because it can take advantage of weaknesses really well. And Mirage Age is such a good card for flexibility in deck building.
And the other thing I think is really like understated in general is like how much good players go to certain archetypes.
Yeah, Lost Box is one of them.
Yeah, and Lost Box I think is only going to go up with good player usage because now it's like I don't want to say like the only deck that requires like a high level of intricacy, but it is definitely one of the only ones, right?
Oh yeah.
Like Chen-Pao is attractive, but some people are turned off by like the randomness of it and like the random like bricks and losses by it. So like I feel like a lot of good players are gonna default to Lost Box, which is gonna like bring its usage up, which is gonna bring its results up, which is like creates this whole kind of snowball, which I think kind of we last saw with Gardevoir a little bit, where Gardevoir was like okay for a little while, then good players started playing it, and then suddenly it's like snowballing like crazy. And what else comes out of it is like good players are also very innovative.
Yeah.
So you get a lot of like innovative like new things to it, like the way like Ross Cawthon innovated like Roaring Moon and stuff like that, right? So I don't know. We'll see. I think Lost Box is really good. I think it's in a position where I think decks are a little bit slower in general. At least that's what it feels like. In
more
theory.
evolution decks like Roaring Moon and Miraidon basically have fallen out of the meta. So
yeah, so you have more time to kind of like get to 10 or whatever, get to 4 or whatever you got to do. And I think Lost Box at its strongest was when it was like playing vacuums and stuff, going crazy, getting 7 and lost on turn 1. And like you might see another version of Turbo Lost Box do well. Like I wouldn't be surprised to see it. And I think Buddy Poffin over VIP passes. This is one of the decks that it might actually hurt a little bit.
Yeah, because you can only really grab Comfy. So you might have to start playing Ditto or something.
I think every other or most other decks that play VIP pass benefit from this.
Yeah,
like, for the most part.
Well, yeah, the decks that revolve around like evolving.
The other one's rotated. Like Mew's gone, so it doesn't matter anyways.
Yeah.
But I do think Lost Box is a place, and I think the more good players that hop on it, the better it's just going to get. So we'll see. Lost Box is also one of those decks where someone can just change it on a dime. Like you just start playing like
there's different builds, right?
Grass Energy and Tropius or like whatever.
Like the person who came with the glasses build, and we saw like the hands build this format. So like same with Lost Box. We can talk about Giratina too. So Giratina is actually seeing a lot of success in Japan. Mm-hmm. I'm just looking at the list. Like it's basically like current format Giratina that just lost path.
Right.
So it's a little surprising for me to see it still doing so well. I think I'd relegate it more to like tier 2 status instead of tier 1 like I'd say it is now. But it is like interesting that like, if you like playing Tina, like it still seems like there's a viable path for you to continue to play it. So.
Just your entire like plan kind of changes a little bit. You don't want to revolve around Roxanne path, right? And like the other thing that I think hurts it is no VIP. Like think about how many times you go VIP for double Tina early or comfy Tina, whatever. You don't really have that option anymore. So I think all lists definitely go up to 4 Nest.
Yeah, 100%.
100%.
Yeah.
You might have to play some Ultra Balls now too. Like when Tina first came out, it was playing like 1 or 2 Ultra Balls, I remember.
Yeah, to get the V-Star.
Yeah, to get the V-Stars. So you might go back to that a little bit. I think there's a lot of space for Lost Zone decks, though. You're right. Like, even though there's no path, I think Lost Zone decks just like are going to do so well because they're so self-sufficient right now that like other decks that are trying to find like their identity are being skipped up over by Lost Box. So I like it. I think it's gonna be good. I mean, I never count out the Japanese in Giratina, so I've learned that lesson a long time ago.
Well, yeah, because I think last year going into our rotation, like Giratina was dominating Japan. Then it kind of flopped when we played our format.
Yeah.
I think mainly because Lugia kind of like beat the deck really well. But yeah, I just didn't see that success that we thought it was gonna see. It took until I don't know, when did Giratina start becoming really good? I think it got top 4 at Worlds, and then I think after that it started seeing more play. But
yeah, you're talking about like last year.
Yeah, like last EUIC, like it was super hyped up. Everyone's like, "Oh, this is gonna be the deck to beat," and then it kind of flopped. So.
Yeah, it did well at Worlds. I think it did well at NISC, didn't it?
No, I think it did really bad at NISC.
Did it?
I'm pretty sure it did. Anyways, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, whatever. It doesn't matter. You guys get whatever.
Yeah, I think it's just my point. Is just like grain of salt. Like we can't just take whatever like Japan does. Like for example, in our whatever the set was for this one for LAIC, we all thought like Bibzard was gonna be the best deck. Then everyone's go it's Pidgey
and Roaring Moon.
And then
it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean now again we're seeing Bibzard is how they play it there mainly, but Pidgeot might be the way to go still. So
best of 1 versus BO3 is a huge.
Yeah, it's another thing too. So it's very different than like format for them. So
yeah, 100%.
Cool. Next deck I want to talk about it's like a new deck. Let's talk about some of the newer ones. So let's talk about the Future Box first. So when I say Future Box, I'm talking about the new Baby Miraidon with the Iron Hands and the Iron Crown.
Yeah, you got it.
Now I practiced my future Pokemon for this. So Iron Crown is the spiritual successor to Cobalion.
Yeah.
Or should I say Deoxys EX. So this deck is kind of like the Team Plasma deck we saw almost over 10 years ago from Plasma.
Yo, was it 10 years ago?
11 years ago, man. 2015.
That is so wild.
That is wild.
I'm old as hell, bro.
Yeah, so...
That's crazy.
This deck is actually pretty good, and it's very simple, which I think is... This might replace Miraidon and Roaring Moon. It's the new...
Very attractive.
It's a new basic deck to play.
Yeah.
Because really the strategy is super simple. It's you open with Miraidon. Its attack is just does 40 damage, put 2 energy into play from your deck, and then you just want to go Iron Hands, take 2 prizes every turn.
It's pretty good.
And the Iron Crown just makes all your future Pokemon do 20 more damage, and it's stackable. So I think one of the problems with Iron Hands right now, it's obviously a really good card, but 120 you can only really take advantage of like low HP stuff. So now if you have like 4 Iron Crowns in play, that's up to 200. You can play the Booster Capsule, or whatever it's called, Energy Capsule, I think. Does an extra 20 damage. You can hit 220, which is enough to knock out like most basic EXs or Vs.
Yeah.
So now, Iron Hands can basically take 2 or 3 prizes every single turn. You've been playing the Heavy Baton, so if it's knocked out, the energies get to stay into play. So the deck is very linear. So like if you're playing against it, like it's very easy to know what to play around, what to do. But just the raw power and the simplicity of the deck, I think, is going to make it an appealing deck for a lot of people.
Yeah, and as like the token Iron Hand sexual here, I would also say that I think it's attractive to people that they just want to finish the games early. They don't want to go to time, like stuff fast. Like that. Like it's just that whole thing's kind of attractive, and I think you're right. Like I think the big basic boom decks, like those kinds of players, are going to replace their Miraidons and their Roaring Moons with this. I do think. And this is a topic for another day, but I do think this format we just had, we talked about this off air. Yeah. This format that we just had was like the best format in the last 3 years. Like,
yeah, really good. Yeah.
Yeah, where you had a combination of like those skill intensive decks like Tina, Gardevoir, Chen-Pao, whatever. You had those big boom decks. You had Miraidon, you had Roaring Moon, you had Mew, you had Control. Like, as much as people don't like Control, it often is a good like part to the recipe for a good format, right? So we've talked about this. I do think that you need all of those things to kind of coexist to have a good format. And I think this coming in to replace Miraidon and Mew is really, really good. Yeah. And especially as the game grows, especially as there's more like, my bad, I just touched you underneath the table. Playing some footsie. Yo, this is like such a small table. Like, we're in the middle of a hotel room. We struggled for like half an hour building this set. But I do think, for the new players, for people who like enjoy that kind of deck, I think it's important. It has to exist. Otherwise, like you're pushing players out of the game. And like we've seen this happen before where players kind of get pushed out of the game, and your growth isn't as much. And I think Pokemon's kind of learned that lesson.
Yeah, I think always having accessible decks, simple to play. And like, no, if you're a good player, you can still play this deck. Like it's super
100%.
great. Like we see a lot. Like example, Ross Collins playing Growing Moon doing well.
Yeah.
Miraidon's been winning regionals. We see great players playing Miraidon. So
Yeah.
No, this deck I think will be. I think it might be like overrepresented for how good it is, just because of that fact that it's nice and simple. I think a lot of juniors I work with, I'm going to suggest that they try this deck out. It's nice and simple. It should be easy to master, get a grip on. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny how like I think it resonates more with like certain types of people. Like we've talked about this, how some decks just resonate with certain types of people, and I do think you're 100% correct in thinking this is going to be overused.
Yeah, I think so. So I
Iron Crowns are $20 though.
They're 20. I mean, that's fine. Like people will buy it. I know people will buy it. So yeah, all right. So we talked about future blocks. So now let's do ancient box.
Yep.
So there's been a couple of different builds of the ancient box. I think the most popular one is using the Flutter Mane, the Roaring Moon, non-EX, and they usually play one Roaring Moon EX and Koraidon. So the deck is kind of, I don't even know how to. It's like kind of a toolbox, but like it doesn't really hit for weakness or anything.
Yeah, I'd say
like,
it plays like, I look at this deck and I just see Vespiquen B, like, Flareon Bees.
Yeah.
Like the old deck, and like it's so cool to me, but I don't think it's like more of a toolbox. I do think it's more just like it's a beat down deck.
Yeah, it's interesting because like Koraidon's supposed to be like early, like you want to open Flutter Mane, just like shut off some abilities, like shut off Comfy, shut off Chen-Pao. Then you want to kind of like early game use Koraidon and take some knockouts because its damage gets capped pretty quickly. You can do 180 at most because it's 30 for each Pokemon you even play. That's an ancient type. And your idea is you want to transition a Roaring Moon in the late game, but I mean to one shot like a Charizard or any like big EX is actually very hard because it's 70 base damage. So you need to start getting like over like you need 26 ancient cards in the discard to knock out Charizard EX. So like maybe if your last knockout you can do it, but I don't know. My problem I've had with the deck is it really struggles with Iono because you don't really have a draw engine. You could play the Drum of Awakening A-Spec, the one that draws one card for the ancient Pokemon to play, but I still feel like Prime Catcher is like too good not to play. So to me, like the deck, it feels fine. It's a single prize deck, which is nice, so you can trade up. So sometimes you just trade 2 for 1. Like it's fine just to like hit something, hit it again. And then eventually, like in the late game, you will get that one big knockout.
And like, there's no heal in the format either. Like, really,
yeah, not really.
There's Turo, there's like a couple. But like, you don't really care too much. So it's not. I agree with you. I think it feels a little underwhelming. Like,
yeah, underwhelming. I think is the word to say. Yeah. So it might be a tier 2 deck. Like someone might figure out a nice little build for it. But just from my initial testing of what I've played so far, like the deck doesn't feel super powerful to me.
And that is one of the, like, I know I said I haven't done any testing, but I've done a little bit of testing. That is one of the few decks I have played.
Yeah.
And like you feel like you're going off. Like when you have like 10, 12 ancient supporters in your discard, you're like, yo, I'm putting this together. And then you realize you're like, yo, I'm doing 190 damage. Yeah. I can't even knock out a V or like a EX.
It's weird. It's like it feels like almost every turn I have to be gusting, but then I'm not playing Sada. I'm not playing like adventures to get more cards in my discard.
And that's what I'm thinking. Like this might be one of those decks that like adapts over time. Like,
it will for sure.
Yeah, like people are gonna go down from 4 Roaring Moon because you're like, there's no way in hell you're using this for 4 turns. I don't think. Yeah. Like you're just there's no way that you get to 11 supporters before they get to 4 prize cards. Yeah. In your discard.
I mean, I do think you need to play like 1 Roaring Moon EX because you want to have just that option to nuke something.
100%.
And like it's fine to give up 2 prizes as long as like you get towards your late game goal. So it's a deck I'm sure someone will come up with an interesting build eventually, but for now I haven't seen that build yet, so I'm not a huge fan of this deck.
No, I hear you.
But one deck I am a huge fan of that does play ancient Pokemon is the Great Tusk.
Yeah.
So I've been having a lot of fun with this deck. I think it's a little underrated. Like it does really well into like setup decks because basically anytime someone's not taking a prize against you, like you're just milling 4 cards of their deck. And over the course of a game, like you're gonna mill useful stuff. Like you're gonna mill Super Rod, you're gonna mill like Super Retrieval, you're gonna mill Energy. So against decks like Chen-Pao, Charizard, I'd say is like a 50-50 matchup. Against even like the Ancient Box, for example, like it's kind of hard for him to scale. The deck does quite well. Yeah. The only problems I have with it is like its Lugia matchup is like pretty much unwinnable. Its first turn's a little shaky, but no, it's another fun deck if you want like a budget deck. It's like interesting, so like try it out.
It folds to Basque Legion.
Sure, yeah, Basque Legion. Yeah,
Basque Legion.
It also folds to Patrol Cap.
What does that do?
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's an item. It's a tool card where I think if it's on your active, cards from your deck can't get milled.
Oh my god.
It also, what's it called? Your opponent plays the other Bibarel, There's a Birbal that says,
oh, I do know that one.
Attacks can't put cards in the discard from your deck or something.
Yeah.
But only if it's on the bench. So you can just counter catch it, so it's not that good. But yeah, I like Great Tusk. I don't think it's ready for me to take to an international yet, but it's something I'll mess around with. I might take it to a League Cup or something.
I feel like I would just be off-put by the idea that Bascule Legion is my number one op. Like, that's just off-putting, man. Like, I don't know. I can't get countered by like that red fish thing. I don't know. It bothers me. I do see how it's good though. I understand that. Like, I do think there's a place for a deck like that. Like Durant Mill was fun, right? Like, it's not as, I think it's somewhere in between like attacking decks and stall decks. So you're not really stalling. It doesn't piss people off as much. And I do think it attracts a different type of demographic of player than stall does, which is good because you need more players to play this. So hopefully it does well. I mean, I have high hopes. There's a lot of annoyance that comes with that deck, and I do think it can be annoyingly good. Yeah. So we'll see. But like segueing right into that, like stall is in an interesting place. I want to talk about stall a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I think initially, like everyone thinks Snorlax stall, but I feel like Pidgeot stall might also have a place. Like I think in the later end of our current format, like Pidgeot stall really started to pick up momentum. It won that. I think it did win that one tournament in Brazil. I think Hale got a couple top 8s with it. And I saw some more top 8s that I'm forgetting, but I think that version is a little more difficult to play, but it has a lot more utility.
Yes.
You can kind of like play the Luxray to snipe out counters. You have Pidgeot obviously, so every turn you can kind of like pick what you need on that turn to disrupt. And you can still play Snorlax in a while to have the block package.
Effect, yeah.
But it's interesting because you kind of use Luxray more to kind of like get rid of all the resources your opponent has, and then once you're sure like they can't get out anymore, then you pivot your strategy. So we're still not seeing a lot of decks play a lot of switching cards. So that's pretty good. You are losing Echoing Horn. I've seen a lot of the builds play Mantine instead, which feels kind of bad because you're basically conceding a prize the turn you do it. But if it sets you up to win the game, it's not horrible. Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting. I think Snorlax is probably going to be the more played version because people are more familiar with it. It's a little bit more simple. But I think it's good because like, I think its Charizard matchup is still going to be strong. Its Chen-Pao matchup is still going to be strong. Those are two of the decks we expect to be the biggest. You can play Temple Sinnoh to counter the Jet Energy. True. I do think his Lugia matchup is kind of weak, in my opinion, because they do play the Jet, and they don't play that many stadiums. They play a couple, and that deck's going to go fast, and everything can attack, so...
that's the issue. I think everything can attack is the big issue.
Yeah, so we'll see. What do you think about Stall?
I think it's in an interesting spot to actually do deceivingly well. I think if Zard is truly tier 0, this deck is really good. Yeah. And I also agree with you that I think Pidgeot is probably more... It has a higher ceiling. Like, obviously, it's more skill intensive. Like, people are not going to just pick it up and play it. Like, you have to test it properly. But if you do, like, it's probably a lot better than Snorlax Stall for the most part. Just your utility, your the other thing is too is I think Donphan, or not Donphan, Great Tusk. Yeah. Great Tusk's success. That was hard. Great Tusk's success. I just wanted to see if I could do it twice. Has a lot of input on how good or bad this is. I think if Great Tusk kind of gets off the ground running and is better than we think, I do think that it might bring down Stall a tiny bit, just because people might start playing more super odds. You're playing that. No one's gonna actually play Bascule Legion, but like just like the idea of people countering that also kind of counters you. So I don't think Great Tusk is gonna have enough of an impact to really matter. But I do think they go hand in hand a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
The Pidgeot version is less countered by that. Is what I was gonna get into.
I think so. I also just think like Stall, like no matter how good it is, like it'll always be underrepresented in meta share.
Of course.
Like, I think a good example is when Oranguru Control was like, I think that was probably an S tier deck in its prime, and it still would only see like 5% meta share. Yeah. Because people just in general don't like playing Control, so. Yeah. I wouldn't be too worried about like if your deck isn't that good against Control, like maybe like if you really want to play Minior, if like you are that scared of it, but. I think it's fine to...
Well, I'm not even sure Minior solves it anymore, right? They play Pidgeot Lost City. That's the problem.
Yeah, against Control. Against the like, Pidgeot version.
And that's why I think it's better. I think you just have more tools.
Yeah.
You're less reliant to like being like, oh, if my opponent plays Minior, I probably lose. Yeah. And you're more just like, okay, I can actually like kind of work my way out of this. I would not be surprised, and this might be a really hot take, but I would not be surprised to see a lot of good players play that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we have a lot of good players who like playing Control, so I assume Sanders going to be at EUIC, so I'm sure he'll find some Control.
If he got in.
Yeah.
It's a 50-50. All right, what else are we missing?
Well, we missed a pretty big deck.
Lugia.
So let's talk about Lugia. So that actually, it won the Champions League in Fukuoka. Mm-hmm. So my initial testing with the deck is, I mean, it's the same as always. Like whenever I set up, I'm like, oh, this deck is like broken. But like I don't set up like a third of my games, because you lost Burnett.
Yeah.
So people are playing Jacques.
Jacques, yes.
Jacques just feels really, because I need to Jacques and I need to have Ultra Ball, which like that's kind of a huge commitment because I'm gonna play 4 copies of Ultra Ball.
Yeah.
I'm also playing Chinchino, which is a very good attacker, but then I'm playing another stage 1 in my deck that I have to get. So, but on the flip side of that, one thing I have noticed about this format is it's much slower. So you really do have time to read the wind sometimes. Like you don't need the Summoning Star turn 2. And Chinchino is really nice for the deck because it gives it an option like early in the game to like prize trade with a single prizer.
Right.
So I think right now like the colorless build, like you kind of have to wait to use Radiant Charizard or whatever. Like currently, like if you turn 2, you can start swinging for like 350 with Chinchino, which one-shots Charizard EX. It one-shots pretty much everything.
Which
right?
is nuts.
It is nuts.
Like, it's crazy.
So I think when the deck gets rolling, it's really good, but sometimes it struggles to get off the ground. And the other thing I will say with the deck is it's really, really weak into Iron Hands. Because Lugia is weak to Lightning, Lumineon's weak to Lightning, and then Chinchino obviously doesn't have over 120. So that is the counterable side to it. I think Lugia is a solid tier 2 deck. I wouldn't put it in tier 1 just mainly because it has the consistency issues, but it is very good.
I feel like on the surface, I would actually put it in tier 1. I just think like the raw power of what it is. Fair. And like, of course, it has consistency issues, and it always has, right? Yep. But people still found a way to do well with it. Yeah. And I think I wouldn't be surprised to see it win a UIC or see it do well. Like, it might be one of those like dark horse decks that like people just kind of like, even me like doing this video, like I kind of overlooked the thought of even Lugia existing. I kind of forgot about it. And like prior to this video, I was going through like all the league results and all that stuff, and I saw Lugia like more than almost anything else. Yeah. So I do think Lugia might come back and rear its head out a little bit.
Because I think we've almost forgotten about Lugia because it's pretty much disappeared from our meta game. But yeah, I think
it's gonna be good, man. That is another one of the few decks that I have tested, and it feels very, very strong. Like it kind of feels like it checks all the boxes like old Lugia did, like where it could one shot, it could trade, it could do all those things. Yep. It can also trade up. So we will see what happens. Going right into that, like with that V-Star theme, let's talk about our boy Arceus.
Yeah, I think that's another deck that's been performing really well. So I think Arctina has been the most popular build. And they've been playing Iron Leaves in it, which I think you pretty much need to have a chance against Charizard. I think another couple tools the deck got is the Mist Energy is kind of nice. Blocking Giratina, blocks Roaring Moonix, which aren't going to be huge in the meta, but they'll have their place. I think V-Guard is very good in the deck right now as well. And just, it's consistent. Like, you lost Judge Path, but like it's just consistent. It'll do.
It's just Arceus, man.
Yeah, it's just Arceus. Like.
It's just Arceus. It's so freaking inevitable. You actually can't it just doesn't go away. Yeah. So I think Max Belt is like night and day for this deck. I think Max Belt is like the huge piece that Arceus was missing, and I know like not all these decks can do well, but I would not be surprised to see Arceus do very, very well just because of Max Belt and because of the idea that like Arceus now is it always did have this built-in consistency engine, but like that consistency engine makes you faster, right? Yep. And in a slow format, you can take advantage of that. And especially if you're playing against like Chen-Pao, where maybe you used to struggle to trade, you go first, you get a turn 2 Starbirth, you get your Max Belt, you knock out a Chen-Pao, suddenly you're ahead for the rest of the game as long as you power to Patina, right? So like little things like that I think make like the world of difference.
I think the problem with Arceus right now is like you're always on the back foot because like you're relying on Judge Path to get you back because like you're hitting for 180 with Trinity Star or whatever it's called. So it's just like that doesn't do anything. So I think having the option now to one-shot any V or EX that's not evolved yet is like a game changer for the deck. And just Tina's just solid. Like 280 is enough to take out most things in the format. So. Yeah,
and your biggest op kind of left the format. Like Miraidon and Mew both were. Well, I guess Mew less so recently with Spiritomb, but like Mew used to be a really bad matchup, and like all those decks that could like one shot you turn 1 were scary for you. Roaring Moon EX as well, right? Like that's what gate kept Arceus for as long as it did. And I think now that those are gone, the format's slower, Max Belt helps you reach numbers, or you can play Prime Catcher, you can play whatever you want, and you Buddy Pop to get out double Beebs at any time. Feels really strong to me.
Yeah. So I think Beebs is another thing. It's like it's a deck that uses it really well. It's like consistent. So I mean, I've never been an Arceus enjoyer just because the deck is very linear. I just don't like decks like that. Yeah. But no, I respect it. I think it's a solid contender in this format.
And like here's the thing, right? Like anything we say now could be entirely different next week. And like it's one of those things. That's the beauty of a blind format. No one really knows what the answers are. You just gotta hope that you have a wide enough understanding to get yourself in a position to do well. And I think when it comes to preparation for EUIC, what I would be doing is I'd be just testing every deck on a very like broad surface. Test everything a little bit, see what kind of resonates with you. And I feel like everyone's gonna be playing mostly like what they find to be a comfort pick. Obviously less so than what this format that just passed, but I think a lot of people are going to say, like, hey, I feel comfortable with this. This feels like it doesn't break. Like, it feels safe to play to an IC. Yeah. And there's such a different mindset, like, when people go to an IC versus a regional. So
yeah, like last, like, EUIC, like, I basically just played Lugia because I'm most comfortable playing this style of deck.
Yeah.
Even though it was very different with rotation, but it was still, like, what I was used to, so.
Yeah, and, like, I don't know. I mean, there's so many things that can change, right? You don't know what can change, but like watching those city leagues, watching those like online tournaments is huge in the next week. And anything that can happen, I would like over exemplify its normal impact by like 2. Like legit, if before Vancouver, someone won a late night with like, I don't know, a random deck, it would impact the format, I think, half as much as it will this weekend. Just because people are so like, not everyone wants to do their own testing. There's a lot of people like so desperate for results that I think keep an eye out. Keep an eye out on one with these like deck out Mondays and these like late night Wednesdays. Like keep an eye out. Some things can change very, very fast.
Yeah, it'll be interesting too if people play the decks they want to play in these late nights, or they keep them
right to keep a secret.
I mean, last year for NAIC when me and my group were testing Chen-Pao, we played them the late nights because we're like, God, so whatever. Let's see if it's actually good against competition. But yeah, I think a lot of good players will hide their secrets from those. But I think the late nights give you a good idea of like what the masses kind of are going to play, or like what the trend, the meta shake-up might be. Just because most people are just going to like find a list there, like from the Champions League, from YouTube, whatever. So.
And that's what I mean, right? Like anything you see there is probably a good indication of what you're going to see, and like you can also use it to like reinforce your thoughts. Like if you think like, oh, Zard is falling a little bit, and you see it do well, you're like, nah, Zard's not falling. So we'll see what happens, man. It's gonna be interesting. It's only a week away, week and a bit. Well, I guess the time this comes out is about 8 days away.
Yeah, 8 days away.
So we'll see what happens. So we're here on vacation in Vancouver, or not outside Vancouver now.
Yeah, we're in Squamish.
Yeah, our legs are very tired from hiking. Did a lot of driving today. We have a makeshift studio, but we brought the Shift Gear podcast to you. Yeah. We tried our best.
Commitment to our viewers.
Yeah, we
tried
our
listeners.
We got both now.
¿Por qué no les dos, right?
So I wanted to round it back out. A lot of people came up to us and said hi, so thank you. Everyone we got to meet. It was a pleasure. Yeah. We always love that stuff. We're going to be back to regular, properly edited stuff next week. Yep. We're going to have slides. We're going to have all that. I went downstairs earlier. Like we went downstairs and looked for a computer. We couldn't find one. So we have one computer to work off of, and it's a laptop that doesn't work half the time. So we will see. We will do our best with what we got. We have a review for you. We have a real life review.
We do have a real life review.
Hi, real life review.
We're doing it now?
Yeah, come give us a review.
I don't remember what I was supposed to say.
You're not supposed to say anything. We want to know your true thoughts.
Give us a live review. Go.
Yo, there was a review that you said earlier, and it really resonated with us. We want you to say it on air.
Listen,
please.
There's a lot of Pokemon podcasts out there, but no other Pokemon podcast will teach you about Defaz and the meta. So take that in and remember that. You're listening to the #1 Pokemon podcast, the #1 Toronto slang podcast, and that's what it is. Shout out Shift Gear.
Thank you.
Yo, that was a mic drop if I've ever heard it. Like, I don't even know if this is gonna be in the video. We might just cut the video there. Like that was ridiculous. That was freaking insane. We did not pay him to say that. We had a couple viewers last week after we explained. Was it the last week or the week before we explained the Defaz? I can't remember. Anyways, there's a Toronto slang word called the Defaz, and I told y'all to look it up. And a couple of viewers were like, "Yo, I looked this up. This is a great word." I'm just worried they're gonna go to like some like random person in like Chicago or like California and say, "Yo, I'm gonna give you the Defaz," and those people are not gonna know what the hell they're talking about. And to be honest, if I didn't live in Toronto, I wouldn't know what the hell they're talking about either. Yeah. That word makes no sense.
Also, disclaimer to our viewers: like people in Toronto don't actually talk like this.
Most people in Toronto
don't talk like this.
There is like a handful, like 5-10% that think they're like gang members. They think they're gang affiliated. And they're like, yo, I'm going to hit you with all the slang possible. But there's not much. Like, if I were to walk up to Ciaran on the street and I wanted to beat the hell out of him, I would not say, yo, I'm going to lay down the Defaz. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not going to say anything. My fist is going to be in his face. But then second of all, like, nobody actively walks around and says, yeah, I gave that man the Defaz. Like, it's not a real thing. So, anyways, do what you will with that information. Just don't walk into Toronto and tell someone you're giving them the Defaz. It's not a good idea. And I don't want to promote that on the podcast. Although I will say, there's a few good words in Toronto slang that should be used more universally. Which we'll do a top 10 Toronto word slang.
I think we will, bro.
I think we're gonna do that. All right, we'll see y'all next week. Love you. Bye.